This is my smoke bush. It's 10 years old. It used to be over there under those dogwoods, but the dogwoods grew large and this poor thing didn't get enough light. Then I dug it up, moved it over to the deck, still not enough sunshine. The leaves didn't even turn purple. Finally, I decided to bring it here where it gets more sunshine, and within 2 weeks the little green leaves turned purple. People know what plants need to grow. So let's imagine for a second that little people are plants in a greenhouse. What do people need to grow vigorously into robust and resilient big plants? Back in the 60s, in spite of poverty and an oppressive socialist regime, my parents, my extended family, the community, the village that raised me did a good job providing ideal growing conditions for me under the circumstances. I had a good childhood, and I'm forever grateful for this. So, how was it back then? The 4 seasons determined what people did, or rather what they couldn't do. We had no fridge. There was no big grocery store with convenient food supply any time of the year. Our food came from the farmer's market and neighborhood gardens. Everything was made from scratch and consumed fresh. Everything was eaten in its season. Winter freezing helped preserve meat. There were no alternatives, no freezers. These limitations had to be accepted, but each season offered something wonderful to enjoy. As a kid, my life was about waiting, always waiting for good things to come. Patiently waiting and dreaming and yearning and craving and anticipating and counting the days. And then the reward was there. The reward was joy, pure and simple joy. I could hardly wait until my mom brought home the first good strawberries from the market, and after finishing my lunch, I could eat as much as I wanted. 2 weeks later, it was the apricots, and then the peaches. Yes, the kind of peaches that you ate and then the peach juice was dripping off your elbows. And then melon season came, and they were perfect. In the fall, the plums and the grapes, and the baked pumpkins and roasted chestnuts into December. And the snow came, and in January we killed the pig. The entire family pitched in, and in the evening we had a funeral feast for the pig. We ate pork for a while, but when it was gone, I had to wait until next January. I had no chance to get bored of things. Our food was a source of pleasure, and it strengthened the family bond. Let's suppose somebody offered a deal to little 10-year-old me. You can have any kind of food at any time of the year. You can have black cherries in December, anything you wish. The only thing you need to be okay with is that the black cherries in December will be hard with no real black cherry taste. You can have pork sausages in August. They just won't have that smoky, spicy oomph, and your spring chickens will be old and chewy, and the tomatoes will be not exactly red and kind of watery. Deal? If I had accepted this deal within a very short amount of time, I would have started lamenting the loss of yummy things and the joy they brought. But then the mysterious deal maker sweetens the pot and says, I'll give you freedom. You no longer need to depend on your mom. You can come and go anytime and you can grab ready-made food in the fridge. You can even microwave yourself a frozen pizza. No more obligatory sit-down family dinners and that bonding thing. Now let's extend the same idea to everything else. Let's imagine a society in which kids always find shortcuts to instantly gratify their desires with meaningless, low-quality anything. Now we see the face of the deal maker. It's him, Mephisto, and he grins. Your parents will do permissive pretend parenting, but you will be left alone and you will have no responsibilities. How about school? You'll get education from teachers who don't know and don't care, easy workload, low expectations, no pressure, no chance to fail. You just need to give up the joy of learning and that proud feeling that you have when you achieve something through hard work. How about this? I'll make all sorts of information easily available for you. It's going to be too much and unreliable, but you can sort it out if you want to bother. Here's a good one. You don't need to figure out how you entertain yourself. You don't need to be creative. I'll give you video games that give you dopamine, lots of dopamine, good dopamine. It's a bit addictive, but that's a good thing if you ask me. For a nice touch, have social media and porn. You trade away friendships and true love, but the cheap substitutes will give you instant gratification. A grand deal from Mephisto is not what I would call ideal growing conditions to produce healthy, robust, and resilient people. Dostoevsky, Nietzsche. I get their point on suffering. I understand and accept that suffering is part of the human condition. I know that suffering does something important to people in a society that tries to abolish it and replace it with everlasting happiness. Chasing utopia creates more suffering, as Dostoevsky warned, and sure enough, it became reality in the Soviet Union. I even agree with Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, who said that suffering comes from constantly striving to fulfill our desires and needs, which quickly returns after they have been momentarily satisfied. I'm cool with the philosophy of suffering. I just have a problem with the word suffering. Some of my fellow Christians who are quick to say, "Take up your own cross," turn out to be miserable people. When I have a legitimate complaint and I want to do something about it, I don't want somebody to tell me, "Oh, don't do anything, just suffer." Another problem I see is that the word suffering and the experience it describes is very relative. Spoiled kid who lives in comfort and safety might describe an internet outage as suffering because he couldn't play his video game. A little sub-Saharan girl who walks 5 kilometers to the water well with a plastic jug physically suffers under the blazing sun, but describes her experience maybe as a tough chore, and she is happy to help her family. That's her reward. The psychologist Carl Jung says suffering that is not understood is hard to bear, while on the other hand, it's often astounding to see how much a person can endure when he or she understands why. I'm not miserable. I don't think that life is only misery with some relief here and there. Thank God this is not me. Maybe it is my temperament, or I have a more optimistic outlook on life. I don't know. Nobody has a charmed life, and I definitely had my fair share of suffering and striving. If striving counts as suffering, then I'm doing well. And I like that word better. So now that we know that an entire generation more or less accepted Mephisto's deal of instantly gratifying desires but trading away real joy and meaningful experiences, what are the consequences? When we look at the statistics, the poor growing conditions produced a disturbingly unhealthy Generation Z. Take a look at this graph. The 61% here are medically diagnosed. A third of them are on medications. Instead of accepting that life is not an easy, fun-filled walk in the park, they complain that life is not fair to them. Gen Z is the loneliest generation. 75% of them are single. Here's the linkage between loneliness and mental health. They mostly use dating apps, but 90% of them are frustrated and unhappy with these apps. 56% of them were ghosted, and apparently the main reason for ghosting is to avoid confrontation. 30% of the ones who don't date blame it on their financial situation. 43% of them want non-monogamous relationships. Only 24% of them have casual intimacy, and very few of them live in committed relationships. Do people have the power to reject Mephisto's deal? Do people have a chance to undo the damage and seek the real deal? It's never too late, and it can be done.